Well, the New York Mets are about to get no hit. Let's talk about it and watch it live.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein, and we are watching the game live right now as the New York Mets are about to get no hit. Francisco Lindor is up. First pitch is a ball. Gavin Williams, who is just throwing his 112th pitch, is trying to get the first no-hitter of the MLB season against the New York Mets, and I figured, let's just watch it live so we get my reaction if the Mets, in fact, get no hit here. But you can find some of my work over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor, and I've been hosting this show since the 2019 season. Well, this has been a very frustrating stretch of baseball for the New York Mets, and now they are working on 13 consecutive innings without a hit. If Gavin Williams finishes this off, it'd be 14 consecutive, as the Mets have not got a hit since Jeff McNeil had a leadoff single in the fourth inning on Tuesday. Lindor hits one foul. Now he's behind on the count 1-2. There's part of me, and you see it in the episode title, that says maybe this team just needed to have a new rock bottom, a new low, to get no hit, and maybe that wakes them up. Lindor strikes out. 2 outs away. I'm almost at the point where I'm rooting for it, as crazy as it is to say, because maybe you just need a horrible flight to Milwaukee, and it wakes this lineup up and it gets this team out of sleepwalk mode, because it's go time. This is the time you're supposed to be winning baseball games. You're playing in front of these packed crowds at Citi Field who are fired up after a trade deadline where the New York Mets made moves, and you've done nothing since the deadline. You just you limped into the dead. I mean, you won 14 of 21, and then in that final series before the deadline, the Mets got swept, and they've just been in a tailspin ever since playing the Padres. Juan Soto, deep fly, center field, not caught, home run, or is it a double? The Mets did not get no hit. Oh, wow. That go out? That hit the black? I think that did go out. Juan Soto with a garbage time home run, but you got to respect it. The New York Mets did not get no hit. Love it. Love it. You know, the funny thing I was going to say, never got around to it, was the one thing that you have to realize is you're facing a pitcher who is completely gassed at this point, because guys barely go above 100 pitches. And so you have him at whatever he's at now, 117. You have a chance to do some damage. Now they're going to have a mound visit, get an arm up really quickly, and probably get him the heck out of this game. Or maybe they'll just pull him right now. But Juan Soto, at least Soto showed some fight and didn't just go down. And he gets a pitch, right down the middle. And Juan Soto, he needed that. He's laughing too. Some Mets fans might not like the reaction from Soto because, his team still is trailing 4-1, but you didn't get no hit, and he put a great swing on that. So to me, that's a nice little Juan Soto moment. It's not quite Lindor breaking up the no and the Mets winning the game, but you never know. There's still time left here. So now we're watching the game live and reacting to it's going to be extended a little bit here, as Pete Alonso is going to get a crack at Gavin Williams here. Tired, you never know. Could this be could I watch 252 live with all of you on YouTube right here? Possibly. But again, this team has looked lifeless, and I don't think that it is a great referendum on what they're going to be moving forward. But I think this is a game that just continues to spotlight what's been a great struggle for this offense, and they have to find a way to snap out of it. And I think when you're trying to figure out what's wrong, I mean, look at the last month and you just see no one's been hitting. But I do think that part of, and Pete hits a fly ball, that's going to be caught, 2 outs. We'll see if they let Williams just finish off the complete game here. or if they're going to go to the bullpen. Looks like Voigt's going to give him one more batter. But part of me wonders, when you're trying to figure out and dissect why this lineup has been so bad, not to blame it on the starting pitching, because they're two separate things. But when you have David Peterson today, who gives up a couple of home runs, gives up 4 runs, not his best start, but once again, he goes 6 innings, and that is now the 8th time in the past 50 games that Peterson has gone 6 innings in a start, and he's the only Mets starter to do so. I wonder if there is some trickle-down effect of momentum. And by having such a shaky foundation with your starting rotation, starting games behind, seeing your starting pitchers, taken out of the game early, putting a lot of strain on the bullpen, and the bullpen ends up struggling. It's one of those things where everything is connected, even if each unit is separate. And so I wonder if that's part of what has held this lineup down a little bit. You also could just blame it entirely on the lineup, but I think the Mets have been struggling to find a consistent momentum, and you see it with the results of their season, where it's a 14-7 stretch, like I talked about. Right, it was going up until the series before the trade deadline. The Mets won a 5 of 7 series, and we're playing really good baseball. And then a tailspin, and maybe they bounce out of it, and maybe they win 7 of the next 10, and then maybe another tailspin. And that streakiness, it's only going to take you so far unless you get streaky when it matters most in October, but you got to get there first. And this Mets team, as presently constructed, the way they've been going about their business, they are looking like the one team in this race right now that might slip out. And granted, I'm only looking at, a recent stretch here where they've struggled so much, but it's been extended. Okay. It's been extended for a little bit, where they've had a bunch of these peaks and valleys, and it has been that extreme where even when they play good, it seems to be met with not a 5-5 stretch in a 10-game span. It's met with they only win 3 games in a 10-game span, or worse than that. I mean, what they're doing right now, they're losing basically every single day. So they got to figure out a way to get things on track, and while the bats have to step up. This is an episode that we're talking about a team that was getting no hit. By the way, Brandon Nimmo drew a walk, and that meant the end of the day for Gavin Williams at well over 120 pitches, 126 pitches for Gavin Williams. So he's throwing more pitches than anybody this season, but did not get the no-hitter thanks to Juan Soto. So now with a runner on first, they're going to the bullpen with Mark Vientos coming up to the plate. But again, this lineup is obviously the thing that's the most glaring problem when you're watching them get no hit for 13 consecutive innings before the Soto homer. But I really do think it is still the rotation that has to lay the foundation for everything else to sort of quiet the waters and hopefully let the batters get back into a better groove and a better rhythm, where maybe if they aren't behind early in games and they have a rotation that they can trust a little bit, maybe they swing the bats a little better. Maybe it all goes hand in hand. But right now, the Mets are not playing great baseball, and barring an incredible comeback here, which would make for a very interesting live show, as I'm almost in a hold pattern just to see, all right, what's going to happen in this game right now? Could this be something that's really special, or are we looking at something that ends up being just a sweep at the hands of the Guardians, and we are going into a Mets off day with a team that is going to have the entire fan base in the dumps for a little bit. And that's one of the things about a baseball season, just the ebbs and the flows, and how they keep you so glued, and that makes it hurt so much more when you're the team that you're living and dying with is dying more than they're living right now. And so when that happens, it just makes it a frustrating existence to be a baseball fan. We're going to wait here and see what happens with the rest of this game. It is back. Mark Vientos is up. Giant hack for Vientos, and swings right through it. Hunter Gaddis on for the Guards. Vientos, while he did not get a hit, clearly, he did hit a couple line drives in this game, and I feel like he's the one hitter that doesn't look scared in the box right now. So if there was someone to do something special in this very moment, it might just be Mark Vientos. So we'll see here what happens. 1-1 count. Yeah, there's a weird part of me that almost wish they got no hits so that they really carried over some. Hold up. Vientos, fly ball. That's going to be it. Game over. 4-1. As part of me almost wishes it was worse than this so that they had to deal with the embarrassment of getting no hit and maybe it sparked something. But honestly, I think the embarrassment of getting swept at home is bad enough for this Mets team. So where do they go from here? How do they move past what was an absolutely dreadful series and then go into Milwaukee to face what's been the best team in baseball for a couple months now? We're going to figure all that out. I'll be back here in just a minute to break down what comes up next for your New York Mets. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up. With 5 Hour Energy Transfusion, it brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with your friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you need that extra energy boost to stay sharp and energized. If you do, go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf for 20% off your first order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting with your friends or turning 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavor 5 Hour Energy shots today. So the New York Mets lose again, get swept. What is next for this team as they are set to head into Milwaukee to try to get things back on track? You got Kodai Senga on the mound, so that's going to be a nice, hopeful chance for him to bounce back, and maybe you can get Senga pitching like the guy that we saw in the first half. That would certainly help get this rotation on some solid footing. But after that, I don't even know who's going to pitch in the upcoming series. You could have Frankie Montas go. You could have Paul Blackburn go. The Mets have not announced a starter for Saturday. On Sunday, it'll be Sean Manaea. In the middle there, we still don't know. And Brandon Sproat would have been in line to make a start today, and he did not. Instead, it was Brandon Waddell. So you do have to wonder, is there a world where Brandon Sproat is going to make his debut in that Milwaukee series, maybe as an opener to Frankie Montas? Who knows? He was the International League Pitcher of the Month for this past month in July, pitching to that 0.67 ERA in 5 starts. He's given up 2 runs over, I believe, his last 6 starts. So maybe that's a guy that brings you a little bit of a jolt. But that's the one thing to sort of look at. How are they going to figure out that start on Saturday? How are they going to work Paul Blackburn back into the mix? If they are going to, are they just going to cut him? And how do they actually utilize those top pitching prospects that can help that unit? But you don't really have anything that's going to help your position player group. And I know some fans, after a game like this, they're seeing Carson Bench dominating in Double-A, and they're thinking, well, Michael Conforto in 2015 got called up. Why not do that? I don't think that you make the trade for Cedric Mullins to just give him a week and then give up on that. And you look at your other outfielders, you're going to ride out whatever you have going on with Juan Soto and Brandon Nimmo, and hopefully that home run for Soto can get him hot, because that's the thing. If Juan Soto gets back to the guy that we saw in June was that big month, then all of a sudden, your team can really take off offensively. And I think we're still waiting for that stretch where Juan Soto has a great run and also carries the lineup himself a little bit. So that's still potentially in the tank here. Pete Alonso is definitely swinging a better bat. I think you have some options here, some guys that can get this lineup going, and I don't think that you're going to see any type of a drastic move with the Carson Bench or a Jet Williams. Like, the Mets are what they are at this point. They have a good position player group. They're trying to figure out the playing time with Beatty, Mauricio, Vientos, McNeil. I think at this stage, from what I'm watching, Jeff McNeil is clearly giving you good at-bats. Mark Vientos is clearly giving you good at-bats. Even if they're not getting the results of the time, those two guys are giving you the most professional at-bats, giving you the best shot. And then Mauricio is just this ignitable force that you want to get him out there. So maybe it's Beatty that has to be relegated to a little bit more of a bench role. He can play the Acuna role of coming off the bench as the defensive replacement and finishing off games, especially if Vientos is getting some more starts over at third. But when you look at this lineup, like there's nothing to be said other than, oh, fire the hitting coaches. But while that's fun to say, and maybe it's true, maybe at the end of this season, the Mets have to consider something with those hitting coaches. Theoretically, sure, you can pull the ripcord. I just don't see the Mets making that type of a move and expecting their AAA coaches to come up and do anything better. But I think philosophically moving forward, maybe that is something the Mets have to address. They might have to figure out a way to teach hitting in the way that they're able to teach pitching, but you're not going to do anything about it right now in the beginning of August. It's just not going to happen. So you have the guys in-house that have to get the job done. Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, those are your guys. And you have plenty of pieces down the bottom of this lineup that should be able to hit, barring just a continual collapse that extends well beyond the month of bad baseball I've already seen. But again, this is a team that goes through stretches. So they are just one series away potentially from starting a new great stretch, and then everything's going to be fine and well. That's, again, the thing about the MLB season is it's emotionally draining because you just never know what version of your team you're going to see. And usually it's a lot of the extremes. It's, oh, this team's awesome. They're going to win the NL East and take the World Series. And then all of a sudden it's the opposite of that. And you're thinking, could the Reds actually catch the Mets in the wild card race? And the answer right now is yes. So the Mets definitely have to step it up. They don't have an easy schedule, but they have plenty of talent on this roster. And I do think if one thing can be taken from what has happened since the trade deadline for the New York Mets, it's obvious how much better their bullpen is. Obvious. So I think they definitely solved a huge problem there. We'll see if and the other side of that and help the lineup start to get going. But right now, it's all just waiting to see what these guys do in-house. You're waiting to see if Kodai Senga and Sean Manaea can get back to being the best version of themselves, and that will completely change the outlook of your rotation. Both those guys are pitching this weekend. You're trying to hope that you find the right combination at the bottom of that lineup, and the top of the lineup does what they're supposed to and starts scoring a bunch of runs together. And then all of a sudden, you can go on a run, and this division has not gotten away from the Mets. But the Phillies did lose today as well. Yeah, so they lost 5-1. So you look at the standings, but it's still probably 2.5 games of separation, and you play the Phillies 7 more times. So we know that those games head-to-head are it's 2 games. I thought it was 2.5 last night. Yeah, I think it's 2.5. Regardless, you're still right there. You're still right there. Nothing has gotten away from the Mets, even if it feels like it has. So you just need to pick it up, start playing some better baseball. And I expect the Mets will, because you can't really play worse than they did against the Guardians in this series. But you also have to credit the Guardians, because the Guardians, they played some pretty good ball too. Their pitchers clearly threw the ball well. Gavin Williams was awesome in this start today. I mean, yes, the Mets lineup was frustrating, but Gavin Williams was definitely locked in. And sometimes you just run into a buzzsaw that you're not expecting. I think that's what the Guardians were to start off this week. But the Mets have some time to think about this, some time to reflect. Off day on Thursday, then they'll play a series, and then an off day on Monday. So we'll see if this can almost be a little reset for the New York Mets. Hopefully they win a series in Milwaukee over the weekend. I'm going to talk about a lot over the next couple of days. One of the shows I want to do is focusing on 2026 and just how much talent the Mets have coming, because while this year is still what you want to focus on, next year might be arguably a much better season for the New York Mets when you think about what they could put together with their roster. And we might see Brandon Sproat coming up. So any news on that, I will certainly address on the show tomorrow. You're going to have your typical episode of Locked On Mets tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I appreciate all of you for tuning into the live stream and watching along with me as we waited to see if the Mets were going to get no hit. I guess I have to change that title of today's episode to something a little bit different. I guess I did jinx it. I tried to. I sent that out in, I think, the 7th inning was when I updated the title and said, we're going to actually publish a title that says the Mets get no hit, because hopefully they won't get no hit. They did not get no hit. That's great. But they also got swept and continue what has been a very bad stretch of baseball, hopefully one that ends soon enough. As always, thank you all for listening. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to the playback, make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on social media at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets.